Welcome Home Atlanta, we center and amplify the diverse stories of our entire metropolitan area.
That's why we're thrilled to partner with East by Southeast and Synchronicity Theater on Where the Mountain Meets the Moon.
Now, as a real estate team, we'd be honored to help you or anyone you know on their home journey.
In the play, Minley reminisces home. I like the sound of that. Well, so do we. Let's connect and craft the next chapter of your story.
We can't wait to see you at the theater.
So I'll start off with the first question. So what do you call your grandmother or your maternal aunt or your paternal uncle?
I feel like for me, because on the maternal and paternal side is very different. So I call my grandmother Nai Nai on my dad's side. But on my mom's side, I was taught Waipo. But in the village that we grew up, it's Apo. And then because I was a baby, that translated into Abwa.
In Vietnamese, maternal grandmother is Bawai, and then maternal grandmother is Manoi. And then same thing, Amwai, but no. Amwai, Amnoi. You just switch the pronoun. And then it's also different regions that have different words.
I think it's so interesting. Well, I think that especially in I don't want to generalize, but like American culture too, they have their own kind of nicknames, but especially in Chinese culture, it's such a set tradition. It's like a cultural rule in a way. Like I do have that variation, but in American culture, you have like Mima, Mama, Mimi, but that's kind of unique to that family. Whereas if I meet another Chinese person or Chinese American person, I already know that they have that shared sort of identity within their family.
Who was the storyteller in your family? And do you have a memory of them telling you a story or a time together that brings you joy?
So both my parents, I would call both my parents like storytellers. Just depends on the context. For my dad, it's always like there was always a lesson to be learned with one. Like one of his earliest ones he told me was the moment he realized that life is difficult and you're gonna be alone. He was 2 years old playing outside by the tree outside the house in Mississippi, and that's when he realized no one was there. And he was like, that's when I knew life was like that, you'd be alone in this life. I'm like, that's dark. And my mom, on the other hand, she'd tell stories about the goblins, dokebi, down in out in Korea. So that's like one of the stories that she'd tell me. Another one was about the ghosts that would be talking to her from the schoolhouse that got bombed during the Civil War. Yeah, so she said she remember hearing ghosts and like hearing sometimes hearing the sounds of bombs dropping, even though she was born right after. So she was born in '56, so about a decade after the war ended, almost a decade. So
in Korea?
Yeah, my mom's from Daegu.
I didn't grow up with folklore or stories like that. It was mostly stories of the war because they experienced the Second War firsthand in Okinawa. So I hear war stories. And I think all the women in my mom's side, she came from a big family with lots of sisters. So I heard stories from all of them. So that's my recollection of growing up in this small village in Okinawa.
So it's the year of the dragon. And do you know what animal you are? And what animal do you think Minley is?
I think Minley is a rabbit. She's cunning and smart, and she will cut you if you cross her. That's what I think.
I was gonna say rat.
Like very close.
Maybe.
I was gonna say monkey
Ooh.
because she's curious.
I was thinking rabbit and rat on the way in today. So it's funny that y'all both said it too.
Who is a rat here?
I don't think we have
think we
one.
had
Kevin and I are boars.
Yes, you
We're
do.
boars.
you
Right?
don't have
Two
rats?
boars.
We have two
Oh.
boars.
Tigers.
Oh.
Crystal and I
Crystal and Francis are tiger.
and Carrie, our choreographer.
Carry our
Yeah.
choreographer, yes.
Oh,
Had
three
a couple of
tigers.
dragons too, right?
Oxes.
Oxes.
Three oxen.
Yeah. Wow. Look at Charlie.
Francis,
I'm
I'm
a
gonna high five you for
Oh yeah, monkey.
a tiger.
He's a monkey.
So I gave the same
What
as
is-
Well,
Similar enough.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, I'm a dog.
You're a dog too. We got
Yeah, so we got two dogs.
Dog.
Joseph is dog.
But a lot of
Yeah, just a dog.
Yeah, a lot of strong oxen.
hard working.
Yeah.
In Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, people are connected to each other with a metaphorical red string. What is the metaphorical red string that connects you to your culture as American or non-American?
I'm gonna say food.
Three. One, two, three, food.
Oh, sorry, we didn't do it all. Okay, Chris, no, you gotta take that now.
For me, food for sure. It's huge. Music to me is also a big part.
Oh yes.
Music is because it can be so specific to a time, particularly when I hadn't yet immigrated. That and sometimes it's like a gateway into it. Like if I'm feeling like I'm not in touch with my origin culture as much, and I think we had this conversation about us being third culture
Yes.
people, because you come from one, you're existing in another, and you're somehow the combination. But when I want to get in touch with that, my first thing is like get in the shower and put on some Brazilian music, and then I'm like, lembrei, you know.
I think for me, for sure, I experienced this. I think the other day I was feeling a little down and I walked into an H Mart and suddenly the smells just took me back to being, probably 7 or 8. When I was living in Taiwan, and just walking around the different grocery stores and the stalls, there's a very specific smell that Asian grocery stores have that and some with durian and some without. But even the ones without durian have a very specific smell that the moment I walk in, I feel like I'm in the presence of my ancestors. and they're like, yes, child, come here. We would like to give you a hug.
I think I developed this really tight relationship with durian because my grandfather really loves that. And when he was in the hospital, the last time I got to see him in person, I spent time feeding him durian on the hospital bed, and it was just like such a powerful moment because I don't speak too much Chinese super fluently, but there was just this really nice connection that I did not feel until those moments of sharing food in such a specific cultural way.
Okay, so just to wrap us up, so what is one thing that you're excited for audiences to take away from this show?
Seeing all of these faces on stage together, telling a story, and then having it being the message being universal and everybody can understand it.
I agree. I think that definitely, even though this is Chinese story, it's universal. It's about family, love, finding yourself. It's just a common theme that comes through this.
And on the opposite side of that coin too is hopefully that they do take away a piece of the vibrancy of Chinese culture, and that it's not what they've been shown in the media or pop culture up until now.
I think this show can also be the jumping off point for people to, especially people of the broad Asian diaspora, to start looking into their own cultures and maybe seeing the connections between this Chinese fairy tale and then fairy tales that they may have grown up with and stories that they may not know too well, and then start saying oh, we're so very different, but yet we're also very similar.
For me, I hope this is a love letter to all moms who show up to the show, to let them know that to have grace for yourself, and I appreciate you all. And so I hope they get that as well. Even though it's a kid's show, I hope the moms feel something as well.
Yeah, I just hope everyone gets entertained, because I knew I would have loved to have seen this as a kid, because I didn't see a lot of this. I just know for myself, Western media facilitated that for me, and it wasn't enough. And I know this right here, I've had so much fun watching and observing and learning, and it's already fun in a working rehearsal. So, and I think a lot of people will understand this is something that people can coexist together with.
We can't wait to see you at Where the Mountain Meets the Moon from January 26th to February 18th.
At Synchronicity Theater.
Yay!